guys, what's up? Welcome back to Holden Brothers 2.0. We're here at the new shop today, and we are finally ready to install our brand new Mohawk 2-post lifts. Y'all check these out. So if you don't know anything about lifts, let me tell you something right now. This is the top of the line, cream of the crop. Steven and I have wanted to buy Mohawk lifts since we found out that they were even made.
Like 15 years ago.
Yeah, we were shopping, I don't know, around about 12, 13 years ago. We finally had enough money saved up to buy a lift.
Yep.
And we did like a lot of people, and we bought kind of a budget lift, and it's got us by, but I'll tell you right now, it ain't
nothing like this.
No, this is an absolutely different universe as far as quality, the build of this thing. It's literally two forklift masts bolted to the ground. And the best part about this is this entire thing made in the United States of America. Come on with it. Look how wide these columns are. Fat. This is like 3/4 inch steel. The C channel's the same way. Full roller bearing. Wait till you see these things. We're gonna get these inside, unpackage them, and let you see what the sum of these parts look like, and you can judge for yourself. But I don't know about you, bro, but I'm excited. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Let's go.
Okay, guys, so first things first, believe it or not, is to actually read the instructions. Unless you want to spend good money and mount your really nice lift like a dweeb, just read the book. You're going to be looking for the basic dimensions on the inside of the columns to be at 120 inches, and the outside is 142 and 3/8. I've made a spot inside the book where I'm writing some notes down on the back of one of the pages to do all the math. So we've got some ISO pads here that we poured. Not all slabs are going to be that way, so if you put it in a room and you want it to be square, you're going to have to 3-4-5 the corner. You're going to have to pull square and pop you some lines as a point of reference if you have a room that's out of square. That way the columns are perfectly parallel to each other and plumb. So you can see here that we're rolling with what's called ISO pads. These ISO pads, hang on, I'm panning my camera down, hang in there with me. You see this caulk line? It's kind of hard to see, it blends in pretty good. But these pads right here are 6 foot wide by 14 foot, actually 14 wide by 6 deep. And so what we're gonna do is kind of reverse the math, do the total measurement, come back in, lay 142 and 3/8 out, and then when we set the columns up, we're gonna come back and we're gonna make sure from inside to inside of the carriage is 120 inches. So the first thing we're gonna do is mark all of our corners, get our chalk line out, pop some lines on this thing, make sure everything's square, and then we're gonna unbox the lift, show you the parts on the inside, and get started on the first step. So let's rock. All right, so back at putting the Mohawk up. So we've had a few things change since since we left off on this video. We were getting ready to set up hydraulics on this lift, and Well, we're going to jump back into doing that now. But we've had to move in our shop from the other place, so we've got stuff scattered everywhere. If you look around, you can see there's tools, there's trucks, there's cars, there's crap. There's all kinds of stuff. There's probably some dog turds sitting on the floor too, so don't mind any of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to resume where we left off, which was installing the hydraulics. And we're going to dig into the box of stuff that they sent and kind of show you what's in there and go from there. Inside the box that comes with the lift, it's actually packaged inside the columns. You're going to get a book with all your instructions and information about the lift, how to use it, all that kind of stuff, individual schematics for different parts of the lift. You'll get a connector to wire the lift in. This is the cord cap end for it. We had our electricians actually install that, so we're not going to use that. I'm going to start setting some stuff to the side here. Got a bag of shims that you use to set the columns up, along with big washers that go on the pivot arm assemblies. So you're going to want to pull all the big washers out and set these to the side. There's also small fasteners and some other stuff. There was a box that had fittings in it. We actually dug through that. All the hydraulic fittings and ends and stuff, those are in this bag. So I'm going to get those all out and set to the side because we're going to go through and use all those. Rubber caps to cap the top end of your bolt when you get done putting the arms on the carriage. All of the studs that actually run through to hold the arms onto the carriage, you got those and their lock washers. You've got your, this is a bypass or a valve that dumps pressure back whenever the column reaches the very top of the throw on this side right here. As the column runs up, this wheel will actually contact a button that is on this. I'm going to show that to you here in just a second. This is actually the hydraulic gauge. That's funny because I thought I was looking at something else here. Hang on. I was trying to show you this. And this valve right here, this button depresses whenever this column reaches all the way up to the top. It sets in a bracket up there and it bypasses fluid back to the sump where the motor is. So this valve, you want to set this to the side. All your hydraulic lines, they come inside the columns as well. They have a part number listed on them. Like this one, 009-010-059. This will correspond to a schematic that comes in your instructions. Now, the writing isn't huge that's on it, but it's ample enough to get the job done. There was a little bit of confusion that I had putting the other two lifts up, and I'll show you when we get to this line and assembling these, because when you've never put one of these up, it looks like this is going to crash into your hydraulic lines, but I'll explain a little bit more about that when we get to that. But still, we're going to take and unpackage all this stuff, setting all of our hydraulic lines in one pile. I've got most of them back here. I know this line goes with this, so I'm going to set this over here to the side. These are all the steel spacers and stuff that go to the lift. You can set all this stuff to the side or leave it in the box until you get to that point. There's plastic isolators that hold the hydraulic lines together that run up over the top side of the lift. There's isolators installed inside each one of the columns already to keep them from wobbling around under hydraulic pressure and stuff. You're going to want to put all these to the side with all your small hardware, 7/16 head, 7/16 nut, and a couple of large fender washers is what puts these assemblies together. These are the holders for these pins. You're going to install these once you get the columns actually lifted up off the floor. You can't access the holes without the columns vertical up off the floor. So set these to the side. Those are going to take their own set of fasteners as well. And yeah, the rest of the stuff that's down in the box is the hardware that you're going to use to the lift pad pieces that actually go in the spacers and stuff like that. All that stuff's in here. So I'm going to pull out what I need, which is all the stuff to put the columns and the arms together and the hydraulics. We're going to do the hydraulics first. Okay, so on this system, we are running an IA-10. This booklet says System 1A. In this particular setup, it's labeled, it's on page 46. 46 is the schematic for all the hydraulic hard lines and stuff. And there's also a really, it's small lettering, but there's a description over here, and this is actually printed out well enough that I can read it. What I'm going to do is, instead of carrying this book around, I'm going to pull this piece of paper out, we're going to do the hydraulic lines that are right here on the pump. Off the pump to this bypass valve. Now this valve right here gives you control of that column on that side. You can bleed that column down individually, or you can pressurize that column individually, depending on how you use this bypass valve. So on the picture in the schematic, this blow up right here is actually what's happening right here. 3 and one labeled 7. So 7 is the furthest inside line. That's going to be T, and that's where we're going to start. So 7, I can go over here and use this. Index 7 is a 015-000-024. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find that line. It's obvious these are two of the shorter lines, so that's kind of where I started first. I'm looking for 015-000-024. 015-000-025, 015-000-024. So this is going to be the first line closest in that I'm going to install. You're going to do that, use that same process throughout. Once you identify which line you're working on, you're going to use the index, go get that line. It also has measurements written on here. That's what you're going to use as your index to find which line is the next line to install. So we're going to start with the first one, and they ship these things with straight thread plugs installed. So you need an Allen to get the plugs out so you can put the adapters in and then install the hard lines up to the valve, from the valve, so on and so forth. This is the bleeder valve assembly. So there is a nylock nut that comes in the packaging, and it threads onto this guy. There's also one of these carriage stops that has been machined to accept this valve and the nut. It goes in this orientation. This goes up on this side where that machine hole is facing down, where this inside roller will come up and make contact with this valve. So what I have learned from doing this is that you don't want to tighten anything completely. You want to start everything. So I'm going to start by setting the valve in the hole and just threading this nut on a little bit. Pretty cool piece on a Mohawk lift. So this is a weight gauge, and it uses hydraulic pressure to determine how much weight's actually on the lift. All right, we got one set of arms on. I'm going to get a little bit more detailed about the other side. So this fastener, this stud just runs through just like that. But when you go to line this up, when you go to put this in, when you look at this inside here, this wedge is actually where that locks. But you have to pick this piece up in order to get this flat spot to key in to the lock. There's a machined flat edge to show that to you now that this is in. If you look inside here, you can see this is where the wedge is, and then this spot's machined flat. When you go to install, you have to pick it up where this flat spot is up at the same height as this. That way you can actually slide the arm all the way in, because whenever you let spring tension off of this, it starts to engage that wedge. I don't know if you can see that back there, but this is the part that as that wedge comes down, it makes it where the arm won't go in any further. So you've got to keep that held up when you put the arm in. I have a cool trick. If you take a water bottle, you can actually get it, cut this deal off and make a funnel. You can thread this into the canister. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just watching the sight glass over here, and I want to get about halfway full. I don't want to have it too damn full, but I want to make sure I got plenty of fluid when it cycles, that we're not going to draw air or whatever. Now they come with fluid, quite a bit of fluid in them, but still you really want to make sure that you got plenty. Alright, so now that we've got our fluid level topped off, I'm going to set my funnel to the side because we may have to come back and top this off again.
May need a drink of water in a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to get a gulp of that nice red Kool-Aid. I'm going to put the cap on. You got to use the right cap that came with it. It's vented. You can't have this sealed. It's very important that you use the right cap. So right now, what I'm going to do is, the plan is to cycle a little bit of fluid, look for leaks, and then get the columns up high enough where I can adjust the locks. So let's see what happens. Alright, so right off the bat, I've got a leak happening right here. That needs to be tightened up. So we're just running this stuff long enough. We don't want to make a leak, or a mess rather, if we don't have to. If you're going to have a problem like this, you don't want to have a problem with a vehicle on the lift. Take your time, making sure you get everything tight. And I would have swore I've been all the way around it and checked it all, so it's important to double check all your stuff. This may be the only fitting I have of this.
You're just bleeding air, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is what we've been doing. It's got a bypass valve on the column. So once you see that starts to move over there, you have individual control of that side by pulling this bypass valve. So now that I know I've got some fluid over there, I'm going to try to bring this up to match this side. Somewhere in there?
Maybe a little more.
A little more?
Yeah. Right there.
So now we look like we're about even, so I'm going to keep going up. Now I've released that bypass to lift both columns at the same time. Alright, now I've got it high enough to set the lock, and I want to be able to cycle it back down and check my fluid level now that I've primed the system. This is the chain brake mechanism, so if you have a problem when the chain breaks, you want this set right. They also have one-way valves on the insides of these cylinders too. There's a lot of redundant stuff that makes these lifts not only badass but safe. And there's quite a few features. It depends on which model you have as to how they work exactly, but for the most part they've got them across the board. And there's stuff like if a hydraulic line breaks, there's a one-way fitting where the cylinder catches it. There's some really cool stuff. I don't know all the exact details. It's something you'd want to talk with one of the guys at Mohawk when you do purchase one, or if you have someone come and install it, they'll give you all that rundown. We opted not to do that. We like to learn. We like to do a lot of our own stuff. So anyway, now we're going to adjust the lock. So on the bottom side right here, what you're looking for is about a 1/16 of an inch is what I've been able to make work really, really well. So when this lock goes up, you need it to be able to hold itself in place. So you're looking for about a 1/16 of an inch underneath these whenever that is engaged. So like there, it just holds, right? So I'm gonna give about a 1/16. And in the instructions, they tell you how to set this. With the weight of it hanging, you want about a 1/16 of an inch, and that looks like about a 1/16 there. Now I need to grab a couple of 1/2 inch wrenches so I can jam those nuts together, but this is gonna work like it's supposed to. All right, so it came back down. We added about a quart. Now I'm gonna cycle it back up, and if I don't see anything leaking by the time I get these columns close to the top, I'm probably gonna start the bleed procedure. So we're gonna get this up where we can see all the fittings that aren't normally exposed. Right about there, because the carriage is, this wheel that's on the very top, that carriage is about to make contact up there. So I want to see that nothing else is leaking. Now I've got some residual crap here going on from that fitting that was leaking earlier, so I'm going to wipe all that stuff off. It looks like this side's good. Nothing's leaking on that cylinder whatsoever. So in the instructions it tells you to hold for a 10-second count. When the column hits the top, it's going to hit that valve over there, the button on our bleeder valve. Now we're gonna wash this gauge, and it's gonna come around and it's gonna wrap out, and it actually has a limit valve on the inside that controls pressure, which is somewhere around 2600, 2700 psi. When that bypass valve opens, that's what's actually gonna purge the air. So we're gonna run this thing up now that we know we're good, nothing's leaking, and we're gonna do a 10-second count off. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, we're gonna let that sit for about, I don't know, a couple of minutes. And what you're doing is allowing all the air bubbles and all that stuff to wick to the high spot for all the foam that's inside there. You're basically letting all the air dissipate out of it so that you're removing the air from the system. You want a completely sealed hydraulic system without water, without air in it. So right now, we're just letting it hang out. We're gonna hang out for, I don't know, a few minutes. Then we'll come back. We're gonna do the same thing again. We'll bring it down, top the fluid level off, and this lift is basically ready to use. Once you put weight on it for the first time and you pick it up, I think it's a great idea to pick it up and set it down and check the torque on your fasteners in the concrete. Now those go to 75 foot-pounds, and you're gonna wanna do that a couple of times. Now you don't click off, click off, click off, click off for all of your life. You're trying to yield 75 and go to the next fastener. 75, next fastener. You're gonna wanna do that a couple of times, and when you see that they quit taking any turns, then you're ready to rock and roll. Looks like that's the last of the air in this thing, so we're gonna let this settle for just a little bit, come back, clean up all of our mess, and then we're ready to put a vehicle on here. So, I mean, that's basically it, guys. I hope y'all have, I hope this video has been helpful to anybody who buys a Mohawk lift, especially this one, System 1A. This is a 10,000 pound. I know they make a 12 and a 14 and multiple other options, but as far as install goes, it's gonna be very, very similar. I believe across the board. It really wasn't bad, honestly. After doing one or two, if we weren't filming, this could have totally been done. And I think, I don't know, probably about 4 hours start to finish, including drilling the holes and setting the columns. So make sure you got a good slab. Make sure you use the fastener, at least the fastener that they sent with the column. 75 foot-pounds. Columns are level. Double check your measurements between columns. Take your time. Check for leaks. You know, try to be safe. I think it's a good idea to practice safety every single time you're going to put something up to 10,000 pounds over your head. So spend your time in doing that, and I think you're going to end up with a really badass lift. I know we're really excited. We've been using the other two in the shop for a few weeks now, and these things are awesome. They're so well built. We get a lot of compliments on them, and I'm really glad with our purchase. The only thing that we haven't put on yet, and we're going to, is our door guards. These things look freaking cool. They're gonna set up on here. We're gonna clean those. They've got a little bit of adhesive on the backside, and we'll glue those on to the columns.
What about the tool holder?
Oh Oh yeah, the tool holder.
I think there's one at that other lift.
So this is a cool piece. You use this wedge that comes with it, and this thing just sets up on the arm, and you can position it in or out or whatever. But it's a cool piece. You can use it to hold an impact, a couple of screwdrivers, whatever you need. And it also it installs really easily. It sets on the column, and then once it's installed, you're there. It's not going to come off, and then it does easily pop right back off in the event that it's in your way. When you're working, you can just pop the thing off or turn it inside out or whatever. And when you're done,
That one end's to hold like an impact, I believe.
yeah, no, for sure. This is
And
to
then
hold an impact.
pry bars,
screwdrivers,
hammers,
bars,
whatever you got.
all that kind of goodie. Air tool. It's got a little ledge to hold that. These
Yeah.
are really cool.
Way cool.
Those dudes hooked us up with these things. This is an awesome piece. We've used it quite a bit. I'd recommend that you get that. Between that and the weight gauge, bro, pretty freaking cool. So we want to say thank you to all the dudes over at Mohawk. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of these things in the background. We're fixing to order the 4-post from those guys, and that's a big bad mamma jamma. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Thanks, Mohawk.
See y'all later.